When you find out you're going to be a father, the first instinct is to tell the people you love. To share that joy, that overwhelming hope for the future. So when I picked up the phone to call my sister, the person I trusted most outside my wife, I expected laughter, maybe a few happy tears, or at the very least, a congratulations. Instead, I got a slap in the face. I can't believe you're doing this. You're so irresponsible. Now Mom and Dad have another mouth to feed. Her words didn't just hurt. They shattered something in me. Especially coming from someone who, to this day, can't pay her mortgage without her mother-in-law's help. Someone whose car was repossessed until her husband's family stepped in and bought her a new one. I had never asked for a single penny. Not from our parents. Not from anyone. I built everything I have on my own. And that call. It changed everything. This is the story of how one moment revealed years of jealousy, resentment, and hypocrisy, and how I turned that betrayal into the best kind of revenge. Before we jump into the full story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss how this one ends. Because sometimes, family doesn't just disappoint you, they make you stronger than ever. Now let's start from the beginning. It was a Wednesday morning when we found out. My wife ran out of the bathroom holding a little white stick, her hands shaking, her smile barely contained. "We're having a baby," she whispered. I pulled her into my arms and felt tears well up in my eyes. I wasn't just ready, I was grateful. I had worked hard for this life. A stable job, a home we owned, no debts, no dependencies. We were ready to be parents. Later that afternoon, while my wife napped on the couch, I scrolled through my contacts and landed on Melissa, my older sister. Growing up, Melissa had always played the role of the responsible one. She was the one who got straight A's, the one our parents bragged about at family dinners. But as we got older, things changed. Melissa married young, rushed into things. And when their finances crumbled, her husband's mother stepped in. She paid their down payment on the apartment. Then, a year later, she bought them a new car after Melissa defaulted on payments. Even so, Melissa never stopped acting like she was superior. Especially when it came to me. I thought this time would be different. So I called. She answered on speaker, her tone rushed. "What's up?" "I've got some news," I said. "You're going to be an aunt." Silence. Then a short laugh. "Are you serious?" "Yeah. We just found out. She's 8 weeks." She sighed. And then came the line I'll never forget. "Wow. I can't believe you're doing this. You're such an irresponsible idiot. Now Mom and Dad have another kid to take care of." It didn't register at first. I thought I misheard her. "What?" I asked. "You think you're ready to raise a kid? You can't even show up to half the family dinners. And now you're dragging everyone into your mess. Guess we'll all be helping to raise this one, huh?" I went quiet. She kept talking, but I stopped listening. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit for years. Melissa didn't want to share in my happiness. She wanted to tear it down. Melissa had always acted like the perfect one. When we were kids, she was the rule follower, the straight A student, the one who never forgot to say, please, and thank you. And our parents ate it up. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one. The one who didn't argue, but also didn't compete. I never tried to win the spotlight, because it wasn't worth it. Melissa had claimed it early and never let go. She graduated college with honors, married her high school sweetheart at 23, and moved into a small condo her mother-in-law helped finance. At first, everything looked picture perfect from the outside. They posted travel photos, engagement pictures, hashtagged vacations. But behind the filters, cracks were forming. Melissa lost her job 6 months after getting married. Her husband's salary wasn't enough to cover their lifestyle. First, they stopped making payments on the car. Then the HOA fees piled up. They kept it quiet for a while, until my mom slipped up one afternoon and said, "Well, Thank God for Greg's mother. She stepped in just in time. They never told anyone that the new car? It wasn't a gift. It was a bailout. Still, Melissa kept her nose in the air. She loved to ask me passive-aggressive questions like, "Are you guys still renting?" Or, "Don't you think you two rushed into buying so young?" Never mind that I had paid for every cent of our house with money I'd saved on my own. Melissa lived in a fantasy, one where I was still the little brother who needed guidance. But I wasn't. And I had a feeling she was starting to realize that. The phone call kept replaying in my mind. Not just the words, but the tone. The immediate assumption that my child would be a burden on the family. That I would be a burden. That I was the irresponsible one. Coming from Melissa, the irony was almost laughable. I started connecting the dots. This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was a pattern. Every time something good happened in my life, she found a way to sour it. When I got promoted, she said, "That's nice, but aren't you working way too many hours?" When I bought our home, she said, "I hope you guys aren't overextending yourselves." When I married my wife, she didn't even say congratulations. Just, "I'm surprised you settled down so fast." It wasn't concern. It was jealousy. Because the one person she had always outranked in our parents' eyes, me, had pulled ahead. And worse, I had done it without help. I started making a list in my head of every time she had cut me down. It was longer than I expected. A week after the call, my mom invited us over for dinner. Just me and my wife. Melissa and her husband wouldn't be there. I was relieved. We hadn't told my parents about the call. Not yet. Dinner was peaceful, until my mom brought up Melissa. "She's been going through a lot lately," she said, pouring tea. "They might have to refinance the apartment again." I said nothing. My wife just looked at me, giving me space to speak if I wanted. Then my mom added, "She told me you two had a disagreement. That maybe you were a little impulsive with this baby news." That was it. I put down my fork. "I told her we were expecting," I said. "And she called me irresponsible. Said you two would have to support our child." My mom's eyes widened. "She said what?" I nodded. "I've never asked you for a dime. Never. We paid for our wedding, our house, everything. But the second I tell her we're having a baby, she says I'm a problem for you to fix." My mom was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "She didn't tell me that part." Of course she didn't. Because Melissa always found a way to twist the story in her favor. But not this time. Not anymore. I was done playing along. After that dinner, my mom started calling more often. Not to talk about Melissa. To talk about us. "How's the pregnancy going? Do you need anything for the baby? Can I come over and help set up the nursery?" It was like something had clicked for her. Like she realized I wasn't the reckless son Melissa had painted me to be. One afternoon, she dropped off a box of books. Some were my old childhood favorites, others were parenting guides. On top of the stack was a small photo album labeled, "For Your Little One." She had made it herself. Later that night, as my wife and I flipped through it, we noticed something. Not a single photo of Melissa. Just me. My mom and I at a park. My first day of kindergarten. The science fair she attended alone when my dad had to work late. It was quiet, but intentional. It was her way of saying, "I see you now." And after all these years, that finally mattered. 2 weeks later, Melissa called my mom in tears. "I don't know what to do," she said loud enough for Liam, our younger cousin, who happened to be visiting, to overhear. "The mortgage is too much. Greg's mom said she won't cover it again." Liam told me everything. "She's freaking out," he said. "And she mentioned something about the car needing repairs too." Of course. She was unraveling. And in true Melissa fashion, she didn't call me, not to apologize, not to talk. But she did send a text. Hope you're getting everything ready for your new little project. Let's see how long you last. I showed it to my wife. She shook her head. You're not going to reply, are you? No, I said. I've got better plans. Because this wasn't just about boundaries anymore. It was about finally standing up to a lifetime of quiet manipulation. And I was ready. I started with the one thing Melissa valued most: perception. She thrived on being the strong one, the example, the organized older sister. But the cracks in that image were growing. So I made them wider. It started with a family lunch. Extended relatives. A few of our parents' friends. My wife and I brought baby announcement cards, handmade, simple, beautiful. My mom insisted on helping us pass them around. Everyone was thrilled. Then, one of our aunts asked, "Will Melissa help plan the shower?" Before I could speak, my mom answered, "I think we'll handle it. Melissa's been overwhelmed." The tone said it all. It wasn't gossip. It was a shift in narrative. And it continued when Liam chimed in with, "Yeah, Greg's mom said she's done helping." It was casual, effortless, but it landed. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Sometimes revenge doesn't start with fire. It starts with a whisper. The following week was like the calm before a storm. Melissa had no idea the tide was turning. While she carried on with her usual superiority act, the rest of the family started to see what I had known for years, that her perfection was just a mask. The final straw came at our mom's birthday dinner. Melissa showed up late, looking annoyed, and barely acknowledged my wife, who was clearly showing at this point. But it was her comment at the dinner table that really lit the fuse. Not everyone has the luxury of playing house and having babies. The whole room went quiet. Our mom set down her glass and looked her straight in the eye. Rachel runs her own business. She didn't stop working. And they own their home. Melissa's face turned red. I didn't mean. Sure you didn't, Liam muttered from the end of the table. Melissa spent the rest of the evening trying to recover, making forced jokes, glancing around to see who was watching. But it was already done. The cracks in her reputation were now visible to everyone. And no one was buying the act anymore. The following Sunday, I got a message from one of our cousins who lives out of state. "Hey, is everything okay between you and Melissa? I saw some stuff on Facebook, she seems upset." I opened the app and saw it instantly. Melissa had posted a not-so-subtle rant. Funny how some siblings play the saint when they're really the first to turn their backs on their parents. The comments section was brutal. One of our aunts wrote, "I don't know, he's been helping more than anyone lately." A cousin chimed in, "Hard to take that seriously coming from someone who's always needed financial help." Another relative added, "Some people just don't like seeing others grow without them." Melissa deleted the post within hours. But the damage was done. People were seeing the truth, and they weren't on her side. And if you've been following this story so far, maybe you've lived something similar. Maybe you've been the sibling who worked hard, stayed quiet, and still got judged. If this sounds familiar, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're real, and they deserve to be heard. Now, back to the story. A few days later, Melissa called. Her voice was careful, sweet, almost. "Hey, can we talk?" "About what?" "About this tension. About Mom. About everything." She showed up on my doorstep the next afternoon, standing awkwardly on the porch. She didn't ask to come in. "Look," she began, "I might have said some things out of stress. It wasn't personal. Melissa, you told me I was irresponsible for having a child. I didn't mean it like that. And then you posted about me online." Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't name you. You didn't have to." She sighed and crossed her arms. "So what, you think you're better than me now?" "No," I said calmly. "But I'm tired of pretending we're the same." That hit her. She looked stunned. Maybe no one had ever said that to her before, not directly. There was a long silence. Then she finally admitted what she came for. The bank called about the apartment. Greg's mom already said no. Of course. This wasn't about closure. It was about help. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, with no emotion. But Rachel and I are focused on our family right now. You won't help me. You never helped me, Melissa. Not once. And I'm done being guilt-tripped for doing well. Her eyes flickered with something between disbelief and shame. I have to go, I added. Rachel's napping. And I closed the door. No yelling. No revenge plot. Just a boundary. And for once, it felt like power. After I closed the door on Melissa, I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. That night, Rachel and I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, the baby registry open on her laptop. We were finally enjoying the excitement without Melissa's shadow looming over everything. My phone buzzed. A text from our dad. Heard what happened. You're doing the right thing. We're proud of you. That one message meant more than he probably realized. For years, I thought being the quiet sibling meant being invisible. But now I understood, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's just strength waiting for the right moment to speak. And I had finally spoken. Of course, Melissa didn't take the rejection quietly. Within a week, I heard from 2 cousins and an old family friend. All said the same thing. She told us you refused to help her with the mortgage. She said you've changed since you got married. She thinks Rachel is controlling you. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to, because the truth was doing all the work for me. Every time she badmouthed me, someone else stepped forward with their own version of reality. Someone remembered how she talked down to them. Someone remembered how she always found a way to be the victim. Melissa had spent so long building a castle on lies, and now it was collapsing around her. Meanwhile, Rachel and I kept building our own life. The nursery was painted. We picked out a name. My boss gave me extra paternity leave. Our world was getting stronger as hers was unraveling. It felt like karma, but really, it was just finally choosing me. Then came the baby shower. We planned it small. Just close friends and family. My mom and Rachel's sister handled most of it. But of course, there was the question of Melissa. My mom asked gently, "Do you want me to invite her?" I paused. Thought about it. Then said, "Only if she calls me first. And apologizes." She never did. So she wasn't invited. That weekend, the backyard was filled with laughter, gifts, and people who actually wanted to be there. Rachel looked radiant. My dad gave a toast. My mom cried happy tears. There was no drama. No tension. Just love. And as I stood beside my wife, one hand on her belly, I realized something. Melissa was never really the problem. The problem was that I kept hoping she would become someone she simply wasn't. But now I was done hoping. I was just living. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The morning Rachel went into labor, I was calm. Not because I wasn't nervous, but because I had cleared out so much noise from my life. The people who mattered were close. The ones who didn't? Long gone. We got to the hospital around 5 a.m. I held her hand through every contraction. The nurses kept saying, "You two make such a strong team." And we were. 12 hours later, our daughter was born. 8 pounds, 2 ounces. A full head of hair. Bright, curious eyes that looked like both of us. We cried. We laughed. We took 1,000 pictures. And in that room, nothing else existed. No resentment. No betrayal. No sister. Just our little family. 2 days later, Melissa showed up at the hospital. I was coming back from the cafeteria when I saw her standing outside our room, holding a small gift bag. She looked unsure, maybe for the first time in her life. I froze. She noticed me, straightened her posture, forced a smile. Hey, did someone invite you? No, she admitted. I just thought, maybe I could stop by. I didn't move. Didn't say anything. She glanced at the closed door. I got something for the baby. Just a blanket. I looked down at the bag. Pink and soft. Probably something she grabbed last minute. She doesn't need a blanket, I said calmly. She needs peace. Melissa's smile faded. I messed up, she whispered. I didn't think it would go this far. But it did, I said. And now you get to live with it. I didn't yell. I didn't get emotional. I just walked past her, opened the door, and closed it behind me. Rachel looked up. Everything okay? Perfect, I said, sitting beside her and taking our baby in my arms. A week later, I posted a photo of our daughter on my social media, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger. The caption said, "You'll never know how much I needed you, until you're old enough to understand what we built without anyone's help." The comments poured in. Friends, family, even old classmates reached out. But one stood out. Your story has been so powerful. Thank you for sharing it. It helped me walk away from someone toxic in my life, too. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just my story anymore. It was bigger than that. So if you've made it this far, and this story has spoken to you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let the algorithm help someone else feel seen. Sometimes, healing begins when we stop keeping things quiet. Because silence never fixes anything. But truth. Truth sets you free. A few weeks after we brought our daughter home, I got a text from Melissa. It was long. Too long. She wrote that she had reflected, that she was going through a hard time, and that no one is perfect. She said she missed having a brother. Said she wanted to start over. And for a moment, I hesitated. I stared at the screen, rereading her words. Part of me wanted to believe she meant it. That she was really ready to change. But then I remembered how many times she had said the right things, only to go back to her old ways. This wasn't new. This was a pattern. And patterns don't change with words. They change with actions. So I didn't reply. Not out of hate. But because silence was finally the most honest answer I had to give. Rachel and I were thriving. Our daughter was growing fast. Her first smile. Her tiny laugh. Her little fingers wrapping around mine every morning. We didn't need drama. We didn't need guilt trips, manipulation, or broken promises. We needed clarity, boundaries, and peace. One night, my dad came over to meet the baby. He stayed for hours, telling old stories, making her laugh, holding her like she was made of glass. As he left, he turned to me and said, "You did it. You built a real family." And I had. Not the one I was born into. The one I chose. The one I nurtured. The one that didn't revolve around people who tried to dim my light to make theirs seem brighter. Sometimes, family isn't about blood. It's about energy. And I was done letting Melissa's poison into our space. The first holiday season with our daughter was everything I dreamed of. Tiny pajamas. Warm cocoa. Rachel singing off-key while decorating the tree. And our daughter giggling at the lights. Melissa wasn't part of it. And for the first time, I didn't feel like something was missing. I felt complete. Mom and Dad came by separately. Melissa had chosen not to attend family dinners anymore. She told people she wasn't feeling well, but we all knew she was avoiding the truth. And that was fine. Her absence didn't leave a hole. It made room for peace. Years from now, my daughter will ask about my side of the family. And I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her I had a sister. That we tried to be close. That sometimes people, even family, can hurt you, and that the bravest thing you can do is to walk away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I'll tell her that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. That boundaries protect love. And that sometimes, starting your own family means starting from scratch. And to you, watching this story, if you've ever been judged for growing, for being happy, for choosing yourself, remember this. You are not selfish. You are brave. And if this story moved you, share it. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Because you never know who else needs to hear that it's okay to cut ties with those who only know how to pull you down. This was my story. But maybe it's yours too.